Welcome in, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Those of you who just joined don't know, my name is Abby Bullard, and I'm the development manager at Atlanta Contemporary. So I'll be sort of a host for today's studio visit with Kirstin. Kirstin Mitchell creates experiential environments in various mediums, including painting, installation, and performance. Her work has been shown nationally and internationally, including exhibitions in Austria and Italy. Mitchell is a recent MOCA GA Working Artist Project Fellow and has a studio through Atlanta Contemporary. She has performed with the support of the Franklin Furnace Fund in Manhattan, New York, and her work has been featured in Art in America, Art Papers, and Flash Art magazines. She has attended residencies at Air Serenbe and abroad for the Premio della Performance in Trentino, Italy. Recent solo exhibitions include the Museum of Contemporary Art of Georgia, MOCA, Atlanta Contemporary and Hathaway Gallery. Collections include Portman Architects, MOCA GA, as well as private collections in the United States and Europe. All right, so I'm going to throw it to you, Kirstin. Let us know.
Hi, I can't tell who's here, but hi, everyone. Happy fall. I have placed on my wall work that is collectible. So I just wanted to go through the process of how I utilize my very temporary active work along with work that is able to be carried home. And this became a very interesting turn for me. I got my mark specifically in Atlanta and actually Italy, doing performance art. And what I gathered from all of that was this enormous amount of energy and moving and controlling space in order to get feelings to a certain place. And then when I started making collectible work, work on paper, specifically the gradients is what I started off with. And specifically in this size, they became a practice in that energy and making something available for people to have of mine, which was the first time that I'd ever offered that, besides other design work and other visual design work. So even with my performance work, it was still so experiential. You could see it in photographs later, but I hadn't made work that was made in private. So the gradients came in as this beautiful way for me to bring in what I had been practicing in the visual world, but also then what I'd been practicing in the spiritual world, which was very much about listening and feeling my inner landscape and making actually shifts and decisions to bring that vibration up and through the body. So these gradients became daily practices for me to pull energy, experience that energy through the body and bring it into the material world. And they were immediately quite popular, and people started collecting them, which was very fascinating to me because I was actually really nervous to go from such wild and free and temporary expressionism into this very minimalist, very subtle, but still very present work on paper. So they've taken different shapes, different sizes, but also different scales. I just finished right before COVID hit. They were installing. A consultant was installing a 64 by 12 foot gradient in wallpaper in Dunwoody, in a brand new building in Dunwoody, which I found very fascinating to see this development, this growth of something that's so personal and so internal, but so optimistic. And what I was referring to when I started doing them as generous, and them making their way to the public sphere. And that is just such a huge part of that particular body of work for me. And that was the intention behind it. It was about sharing a part of myself that I had separated from the more dramatic performative work. So they're in a bunch of different places, a lot of private homes, and then also healthcare facilities. And I really liked the idea of that, the tenderness and the groundedness and the inspiration that they hold, and them being bigger than me, like almost a channeling that then makes their way to someone's daily experience. So that's these gradients. And again, these were the first ones I started making at 19 by 24 inches. And I love them because it has a bodily presence, like the scale of it sort of works really well with making them. So the pleasure, the meditation of making them, which is a secret, I guess. I was told several times to never tell the process of how I make them, although I've tended to many times. But it's very physical. It's very eye-hand coordination, and it's like a skill that's come from, I think, just painting for so many years to get so comfortable with the brush, and then there's also the viscosity. So like the how thin or how thick the paint is, and the way they work together. It's sort of this beautiful physical combining of colors along with a bit of math that is just very pleasurable to me, and that hits these like skill markers that I have had since youth, I guess. So I think that's one of the reasons that they're such a joy to make and are so pleasurable and beyond me, right? Because it's just something that comes through very naturally. There's not a tension or agitation to it. It's like a really beautiful, beautiful process. And so I have these at 19 by 24. This is a brand new color that's kind of fun. I often do these more subtle, softer colors that are very airy and spacious. And then I've been playing around with some different sizes. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing that I've done before is a collector's box. So I have this 11 by 14. And the last time I did them, there were 4, and it was called Summer Collectors or Summer Collections. So I'm going to do one that's about paradise, because I'm obsessed with paradise. I'm obsessed with the feeling of the pleasure and the openness and the dream and the sun and all the good stuff that comes with paradise. So that will be up that'll be on my website, and also it will be on my Instagram, which Instagram is a really great way to see what I'm doing daily. The weird stuff, I've got a lot of weird stuff. That's just why I wanted to address all this, because I'm often, seen, especially on my Instagram, I'm posting a lot of my process-based work, and I'll get to some of that. And actually, maybe I'll get to that now. So this is, I wanted to bring this into this because it's something I've played with for years now, with fabric, silk, and fashion. And with this isolation, I spent a lot of time in the woods because I was afraid to be around people, but also I just had friends with available cabins, so that made that pretty smooth to do. But so I was very interested in working with soft things, affectionate things. And so silk is sort of this thing that I was afraid of as a child because of the way we're raised around like silk things. But then getting into fashion and then accidentally washing it when I was young, or or just washing it because I got it at a thrift store and I just had to wash it before I wear it. And I'm also just like not a dry cleaner. Like that just won't happen with me. So it became just one of my favorite articles. And I went through with Big Deep, which is a phase or a body of work that was really quite successful and really beautiful, where I would take clothes and I would alter them. And that included dyeing some silk stuff, taking it into natural environments, and using that combination of deep body meditative practice along with performative sort of audience presence, with just private photography. And then I sold those items as well. So this was about taking scarves, dyeing them, and then taking them into the woods and seeing what comes up and processing deeper feelings or deeper intuitions, really. And so this came out of Big Canoe when I was there in April and May. And then this piece was swagged about in Elegies when I went to the Kusawati River. And they come in different colors and different shapes. This one is a silk chiffon that's dyed yellow. And I'm just still playing with them. I haven't fully introduced them as a line yet, but they're again a part of that thinking about collectability and then my daily practice. Because that's just part of the connection with my audience. It's like, how many different ways can I have exchange with my audience? And this is something that I'm very fascinated with. So these are actually, you can see them through photographs. You can see them on my Instagram. You can see them on my website, and they will be processed and put on my website for sale, which I have a sale page on there. So anyway, you can let me know if you have any questions about those. These are linga, Gianna linga. They're made of foam and latex, and I introduced them when I started doing archery because I was thinking about receptivity when it comes to the era, and how we need targets when we practice archery. And I just started really creating sympathies with the target, and because I was also thinking about animals and hunting and just the impact of that arrow. And at the same time, this is when I did a residency at Air Serenbe. I fell in love with this pig that whose name was Einstein, and he was like the farm pig, and I would go look for him every day, and he was just hilarious and adorable. And I'll try to find a picture of him at some point, repost it. But so he became a part of that dialogue of that, like the tenderness, the compassion, the adorability of that receptivity of the attention. So not just the weapon, but the attention. Because again, that archery practice was very much about meditation, and it was very much about action. So the idea of like getting up and off of the mat or the meditation station and making a very deliberate action. So with these sympathies of the target, of the foam, came these sort of slightly living, slightly chillin', slightly phallic. Janalinga, for the lack of a better word, was a shape that someone I studied with put all of his meditative energy into, and would rely on that, not only for himself, but for everyone around him, in order to hold that strong sacred energy. So they sum up a huge part of what my practice is about, which comes from that place of like that deeper place of like grounded energy up into a somewhat playful, sexualized, and even joyful and crittery relationship. Anyway, so these aren't posted yet either, but I'll be posting these soon on my website, and you can check that out.
And just so everyone knows, Veronica put a link in the chat for a Facebook page for Einstein the Pig. So if you want to learn more about Einstein, yeah.
The one at Air Cerebry is particularly special. I don't know if he's here anymore, unfortunately, but I hold him sacred. Okay, so then these are the butterfly series that I started after I got my airbrush machine, because, and I did I have some other work called curves, which are quite lovely. I'll do more of those soon as well. Actually, I have one here. I'll grab it real quick. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen it. So look at that. Get closer. So sort of playing still with energy. So what I liked about the airbrush, which seems sort of obvious, is that it's got that gradient control. It's got that sort of neon California, like sort of a gaiety to it, right? Like there's just like this like play. When I think of airbrush, I think of playing, like the beach and, something joyful. So I sort of accidentally stumbled on these. I liked the idea of these two arches, which I play with quite a bit, but I liked the idea of these two things sort of bumping into, like the curve, that space between two people or two ideas or whatever, that sort of empty space that's the point of fusion. So with that, I started to just think about the energy of that, the impact of that, and I just sprayed the center like I would with the curves, but I filled it in, and it just woke me up to that part of my character that still cracks me up. It's that playful along with the sexual, and then that spiritual, right? So there's like within that womb and within that, like within even the phallic, is that very strong, just like unbreakable energy that's so like, and I will say, to my own sexual credit, then I also refer to them as clits. So it's not just this penis, it's like also this very feminine in its own right too. The pollinator can be used in any way, I suppose. So the butterflies then sort of seem to have that rather phallic-y shape down the middle. And then I just also suddenly, with the one that I was making, it was a time where I was feeling really raw, and it just seemed like a big spread. So that was part of the sexuality of it as a female, but then also sort of the light and playful and airy quality of the butterflies. So they became this like beautiful, clever happening that happened that wasn't planned. It was, like some of the way that I work is I just get so much desire to make something, and then words and intentions then make their meaning as it happens. And so these happened, they all happened actually. This all just happens. And part of that is that deep processing and the trust, and just really trusting what comes up and getting so curious about it. And so then at the end, I suppose it's discernment and deciding what sticks and what's the most valuable to me. So I'll be making some more of these. These two are both collected already, but I will be making some more. Okay, so that is all I have to say with this chunk. Do we have any questions?
Well, I'm really curious to learn more about this ceramic pot you have with the light in it. It's just been like just drawing my eye as you like walk between it. It's like something about this pot is like giving me some vibes. So tell me about what you've been playing with there.
It seems to be cut off on mine. I had sort of, let me.
That's great.
I just fell in love with this pot, and then I put a gradient on it. And it's like, it's just one of these kind of like fascinating things that is, I mean, I'd say it's broken. It's like those spaces between, but it's really airy. And I like the way that it's not this like utilized vessel as much as it's this like very fascinating broken vessel that then illuminates. So it's really quite lovely at night too. And I usually just have it on the floor. And so it holds this like antiquity and this a little bit of like dirt or sort of like, it holds a grounded energy to it, but then is so like, illuminating light that it's like this beautiful balance that I just think it's really hot and I like it. So, and I'm not sure that anyone's ever seen it. I don't think I've had it out I made it like late last year, I think. So
Awesome. I like it. It's good. Adds a nice sort of interesting, like, because you usually use so many colors and you always use these gradients and certainly definitely objects and a lot of times too objects that are puncturing. And so this one's sort of got a different tone to it, but I really like the energy that it's giving off. So
it'll be on my website soon. I haven't taken photos of it for that yet, but.
Kirstin, I'll ask a question. Hi, thank you. When did you start making the gradients? Because, as like, how many years have you been focusing on this? Because they've really just evolved quite beautifully.
Thank you. Well, so I started making them in this form right after my performance here at the Atlanta Contemporary, the Tropic of Gemini. That was a hunt for paradise, and I was very fascinated with the idea of buoying in the middle of the ocean and watching the sunset, but that sort of deep draw that the ocean water has that is somewhat terrifying. Mm-hmm. As you go down, it gets darker or colder, and then as this sort of like lit sky gets like brighter and brighter. And so I was rather fascinated with that point of tension. And then I expressed it through these two gradients. But I actually, interesting side note, the first gradient I did was for Khalees and Nas. So Nas, the rapper, and Khalees, who sang the Milkshake song. I did a huge gradient in their living room. That was like 18 foot tall and covered the entire living room. And I used scaffolding, and it was really beautiful and was featured on BET. And it wasn't something that I offered them. It was something they asked if I could do. And so I did it, and I figured out how to do it. I stippled that one, so it was like very, very physical, very athletic. But the point being that it put it in my body, but it was something that I kind of associated more with the design world. So when I was doing all of that performative work, it wasn't something that I considered to be part of my art. And so then when it trickled in after that moment with really wanting to understand paradise and what that feeling was, that old skill or that old sort of experience then trickled, like just sort of stepped right in, pretty much already understanding the math around making that gradient. So and then it was, like I said, it was the point of real discomfort, actually, to put that work out there after doing such intense performative work. But my audience just sort of came in so intensely that it was quite supportive and encouraging. And then I went with it.
You're beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've got about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. Thank you to everyone who has participated today. Thank you, Kirstin, for sharing yourself and being vulnerable but beautiful with us. And thank you so much for being here today and spending time with us. Be safe and travel safe this holiday season.
Thank you.